Share screen. All right. Well, we are excited to have the one, the only Michael Neeley join us from Consciously Speaking podcast out here. Mike, so glad to have you out here, man. I know you're in the middle of, like you said, moving, organizing the things. Is always fun to do on a weekend, but thanks for taking some time out of your busy schedule to be with us here.
It's a pleasure, Scott, man. Thanks for putting together such an awesome event. This is rocking.
Glad to. It's like I said, but I'll say it again. It's easy when we got great people that can follow a calendar, can show up on time. It makes it so much easier to put this together.
Yeah.
You know, not to chase cats. But for those that don't know Michael, a little bit about Michael. Michael is a former professional actor in Medieval Knight. I love that in your bio. Medieval Knight, turned author, speaker, personal development coach, and host of 2 podcasts. His passion is waking people up, and he does it by mentoring heart-centered entrepreneurs in finding their gift, growing their voice, and stepping into the spotlight in a big way. As a mindset master and authority builder, Michael guides people in podcasting, hosting their own summit, social media marketing, and growing their audience. If you have a message or vision itching to get out, Michael is your guy. So welcome to International Podcast Day, Michael.
Thank you, man. Such a pleasure to be here.
Yes, sir. So for those of you that haven't been listening, or for those that haven't heard a little bit about your show, take a few minutes to share what's going on with your podcast. Tell us a little bit about more the nuts and bolts of it.
All right. Yeah. Well, in actuality, I have 3 shows and about to launch a 4th. One of them actually with the woman you just had on.
That's right.
Fremont. Yeah. She and I are launching a new show shortly. So very exciting. And but my main show is Consciously Speaking. We just dropped, I think, episode 354. Been around for 4 years, hitting 2 million downloads, and I'm just loving podcasting. I mean, it's awesome. And that show really is geared. It's about just having awakened conversations, more mindful living, and ways to wake up more. So I bring in everybody from Buddhist monks and Reiki healers to people who do past life regressions and, astral projections and all kinds of stuff. It's all new agey and woo-woo.
Yeah. And then what's the other show that you're doing?
The other shows that I have, Buy This, Not That, is actually geared towards entrepreneurs. It's an entrepreneurial tool review show. And what I do in that show is I actually will take software, like software as a service, SaaS programs that we use, like our scheduling software, a webinar platform, our mail hosting providers. I review those so that people who are trying to make a choice can find one spot to kind of go and check all those out and then make a decision. But I also review training programs. So if you're wanting to learn how to create the best online course, I review people who create online courses, and then you can go through and listen and decide who to go with. And, the whole gamut, webinar, running an optimal webinar sequence and all of it. So pretty fun.
That's, huge. I've been listening, binging to both of those on a pretty regular basis here, really enjoying both of them. But I should get some nuggets from Buy This, Not That there. I think every entrepreneur should have a place they can go to, and I think your show is one of the better places to go to.
Thanks. And I got to say, it will get better. It's one of those types of shows that will get better as it gets built out over the long haul, because the more I review, the more different technology, then the more you can look at to really make an informed decision. Oops.
Mm-hmm. Now, you've got another show, too. Share what's going on with the other show that you've got.
Yeah, so my other one is called Something to Whine About. And again, excuse me 1 second here. I just popped my earbuds out. Something to Whine About is totally fun show. It evolved out of last year's New Media Summit, which, by the way, was so cool meeting you this year at the New Media Summit in Austin. And Something to Whine About is totally a passion project. Myself and co-host Melanie Benson, we created it over the dinner one of the nights out at New Media Summit, and we said, talked about how much we loved wine. And I said, I really wanted to host a wine podcast, but it's not the kind of show I'd ever want to do on my own, And she's like, I'll host it with you. And so it was a match made in heaven, and we just drink wine and talk about wine. It's not like a connoisseurial show at all. It's totally for shits and grits. Am I allowed to say that on here?
You are, yeah. Ruby dropped a few F-bombs, so we're good.
All right, we're good. There went that PG-13 rating,
That's right. That's quite all right. But that's the beautiful thing. I mean, if Gary Vee can get and bring on a couple $1 million in profit from talking about wine, why can't you talk about a passion project, right?
Yeah, and totally for fun. And who knows? And what would be really funny is if that one ended up making more money than the other work that we do. That it could happen. So
well, and that's the beautiful thing is that you've got I'll say your kind of your staples, and then it's easy. I think a lot of people don't realize that it's easier to kind of add that stuff on once you've got one that you've done for a while, right?
Yeah. It's just once you're up and at it, the rest of it, And it's interesting that you say that too, Scott, because I think the challenge is I go to events like Podcast Movement and I meet all these people who've been thinking of starting a podcast for a year or more, and they still haven't done it. And it's like, just do it. Just get past that first hurdle of your fear, and then it's a piece of cake after that. So
yeah, that's so mind blowing too. I agree. Whether it's Podfest or Podcast Movement or New Media Summit or any of them, traffic and conversion in San Diego, you're talking to people, and like you're thinking you could have been so much further along if you stopped thinking and started doing, right?
Yeah. You will learn so much more in the doing than you ever will with the thinking part. So do it.
Or lets me read a book and learn everything so I'm an expert on it.
Yeah. Doesn't happen that way.
Doesn't have that. What's been the biggest aha that you've had from your main podcast? What's been the biggest aha moment you've taken from your guests or?
Yeah, thank you. It's actually been a byproduct of having the podcast. And it's actually a lot of how I built the Authority Blueprint was based on my own experience. And what happened for me, Scott, was the podcast put me on the map. Mm-hmm. And almost immediately following that podcast, I followed up with a virtual summit. And that virtual summit really built my list and built some revenue. And things started to skyrocket. And then I started getting invited to do speaking gigs on other people's stages. And all this helped me to flesh out my book. And so those 4 elements together, I then figured out, if you do them in a particular sequence, they build on each other and feed each other really strongly. And so that's how I developed the Authority Blueprint. And so that was kind of the big aha for me, was like, oh, wait a minute, all of this stuff really kind of works together. And the order and sequencing is important. And it was just it was a blessing for me.
Let's talk a little bit about Authority Blueprint Live. Tell the listeners out there what that is and how they can help them.
Yeah, so at my live event, it's a 3-day live event, and I teach people how to intertwine those 4 elements and the sequence to do it in. And as an example, I get a lot of people who come to my event and they go, well, I've already got my book ready to go. And I'm like, can you hold off on the book? Because the truth is, when someone reads your book, they read it, they finish it, they put it on the shelf, your engagement with them is over. However, if you wait and have your book out after your podcast is out, and after you're doing speaking gigs, and after you're doing your live events, then in your book, you can actually reference your podcast and say, if you want more details about this chapter, listen to podcast episode 323 or whatever it might be. So they start to interfeed each other. And you can't do that if you do your book before your podcast is done even. And so there's, the sequential aspect. So I teach that, and it's really a transformational event. I teach people how to get off the fence, because again, my experience being that so many people are afraid to start. And so it's a lot about that. And I give people a little bit of a kick in the butt and get them out there.
So what is your advice or the kick in the butt to get them started?
Well, I offer a really nice free report, which is called the simple 5-step process to launch a rockin' podcast in just 14 days. And the reason I called it that was I was actually, before my podcast was out, I was interviewing a client, and I asked if I could record the session because it was going really well. And he said, sure. And we played it back afterwards, and he said, dude, you should launch a podcast. And I was like, what's a podcast? I'd heard the word, but I'd never listened to one in my life. I didn't know how one was done. 14 days later, my podcast was live. And so that's how doable it is. And the thing was, I got to admit, I didn't know enough to get in my own way. Sometimes we overthink. It's paralysis by analysis. Get out of your own way. And so the simple 5-step process to launch a rockin' podcast in just 14 days, it's a free report. Makes it super easy. It's just do this, boom, you're out there. Dang it, I keep pulling my earbuds out.
You talk with your hands like I do, my friend.
I do.
But that is, you say a really good thing. I really want to highlight what you just said. You didn't know enough to get in your own way.
Exactly.
And that's so important. So many put the whole, well, what if this, or I don't know this. Just freaking do it. You've heard Ruby talk about that earlier. You've heard so many of our podcast day guests talk about just get out and do it. Just do it. It's so much easier than you expect. And the beauty thing is that the networking, the community is so much more giving to helping out everybody, right?
Yeah, Hal, that's one of the things I love about podcasting, by the way, is the community is wonderful. It's like we're all independents still. It's not like, you're dealing with the callers at ABC or NPR or anything like that. We're individuals. We're really just striking out on our own. So it's really supportive and just great people. So I love it for that alone.
That's good stuff. We got some comments here, so you got some fan clubs. Phoebe says, "So good to see you, Michael Neeley. Shits and grits. Haha, love it." So
yeah.
what I want to say this properly here because I'm trying to find the right words for it. Have you had any pushback from your other show, from any of the software that you reviewed that you maybe didn't give a good review to? Have any pushback from some of the people that you didn't like, or that you maybe didn't like their buy this, not that?
Yeah. I haven't. And I'll tell you, I think part of why, and I explain this to people who are really just coming on the show, is when I explain what the not that part means. I tend to not diss any of the software or programs. I try to just give a really unbiased, honest review. The not that is more about, look, this isn't right for you if you're just starting out. You don't want Infusionsoft if you've only got a list of 50 people.
Amen.
So it's things like that. Is don't buy Infusionsoft yet. It's great software, but you're not ready for it. Yeah. So that would be where that element will come in. And yeah, nobody's giving me any pushback, but they may be not happy about that. Going, no, we want them when they've only got 50 on their list. So who knows?
Right. Well, but that gives them an opportunity. I think the biggest thing with any type of software or company is using those reviews as a way to help them grow, help them.
True.
Back. You know what I mean?
True, yeah. And you know what? Some of the platforms now have scaled down programs. They have lower price range for the people who are just getting started, as well as it should be. Like someone who's just starting out, they're not going to want to foot the kind of expenses that a thing like Infusionsoft might cost. Mm-hmm. And so there's definitely a time when it's right, and they're working to make it where it's good for everybody. So that's also good.
Yeah. Last thing I want to do is donate to Infusionsoft for 2 years, like I did.
Right. Yeah, I mean, how many times have we done that? We sign up for a platform and then we don't use it. We just keep paying and paying and paying. And finally, I mean, a lot of times, I've done this with several myself. It's like, all right, I got to cut that, string there because this is getting crazy.
Mm-hmm. We got Kim Sutton saying, "Thank you, Michael. As an Infusionsoft certified partner, I truly appreciate you telling people they're not ready for it."
Yeah.
Well, but I think as entrepreneurs, we're so tired of the smoke blowing, the bullshit that this works for everybody. We thrive for that honesty that comes from, hey, you're not ready for this. At some point, yes, you'll be ready, but you don't need that now. This is what you need for your needs right now, your show, your level, and growing from there, right?
Yeah, totally. You got it, man.
So let's talk about it. You've done a great job with that. Where do you see your show going in the next 12 months?
For Buy This, Not That, it's really an interesting business model that I created with that. So one of the ways that I shifted the monetization format for it is that every software platform or even training program that I review, and not everyone, but 95% of them, I am an affiliate partner. And so I don't have to run ads on that show. And if someone signs up, I, of course, let them know that I'm an affiliate of the program, and I hope that they'll use my link. Sometimes I can even negotiate them a better deal, but it's no extra money out of their pocket, yet the affiliate fees help to fund the show. So I'm hoping that within the next 12 months that it really starts to build enough of a review base that it can start to fund itself really nicely. And I do know that that's one of those types of shows that's going to take a while. I'm probably going to need to have 60, 70 episodes of really good, solid reviews chunked in there to really have it start to monetize itself.
Yeah, I think a lot of people forget about the the affiliate commissions, because most companies have something. Most speakers or entrepreneurs will have some sort of affiliate program to help them out, or help those that maybe are their biggest advocates out there. I know we've got an affiliate with what we do with our workshops and things like that. I know Steve, was talking about that from New Media Summit. Who's on here, has a great affiliate program and stuff like that. It's a great way to make some residual income by just using and sharing your passions, right?
It really is. And you mentioned Steve, one of the first episodes, well, the first real episode of review that I did was Steve's program, Profiting from Podcasts. Mm-hmm. And in that, it's an evergreen podcast that I have up. So now people can find that and get filtered into his programs throughout the year, and it's commissionable to me. And so, it just creates a win-win all around. And I think it's a great way to monetize a business. And you're right, a lot of people don't think about those affiliate relationships.
Michael, what episode is that? So we can forward people to that episode.
Yeah,
to help you out with your affiliate
episode 2, right after the introduction, and that's Steve Olster's Profiting from Podcasts.
Yeah, good stuff out there. Let's see, we got a comment here. Berdaluz Claus says, thanks for your insights here, Mike. Michael, hope we can meet up in person this week in beautiful Santa Cruz.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that'd be great.
Mm-hmm. Verdaluz. Oh, yes, I remember Verdaluz. Yes,
Yeah.
I remember him from New Media Summit. Exactly right. So,
yep, going to have him on my show, Consciously Speaking, too.
Exactly. So what's the best advice you can give somebody out there who's maybe struggling, who's hit maybe a little bit of pod fade? What kind of advice can you give to those that are struggling out there?
Yeah, well, I'm going to handle two pieces of that because you started the question, I had one answer, and then you added the pod fade piece. And so if you don't have a podcast, I would say get a podcast. What are you waiting for? And if you think, oh, well, it's not the right time, there is not ever going to be a better time. It's like, when's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. Second best time, right now. Okay, so launch a podcast. And here, if you don't think it's valuable, then why are people who already have massive followings launching podcasts? Because they see the value, even though they have massive followings, like your Tony Robbins and your Deepak Chopra and Byron Katie. So launch a podcast. That's part one. Now, the pod fade piece is just remember that this is a long tail game. And I think the important piece is set yourself up with a long-term strategy. Don't burn yourself out. Don't build too high of expectations right out of the gate. It takes a while to grow it, but keep at it because the people who keep at it will win.
That's huge there, Michael. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
I probably, go to my website, michael@michaelneeley.com is the easiest spot. I have a lot of free stuff on there, including my free report, the simple 5-step process to launch a rockin' podcast in 14 days. I've also got a webinar and some other stuff. So check out my website, michaelneeley.com. And, I look forward to connecting with you. And if you want to drop me an email, michael@michaelneeley.com.
Awesome, Michael. Thank you so much for being such a great part of Podcast Day 2018, man. I'll let you get back to moving, huh?
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate it, man. I love what you're up to in the world. Keep up the great work.
Hey, thanks, man. You too, bud. We'll talk to you later.
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, guys, let's bring on our next guest here really fast. I see her already being patient there. Hey, Kim, give me 1 second here real fast.